Chapter 2. Greek Theatre. The theatre of the ancient Greek civilization is significant to the study of all Western theatre practice because so many innovations from this period are with us today. As the people moved from tribal organization to being part of independent city-states, they retained earlier traditions and incorporated them into their civic life. The first development is attributed to the 6th century BC harpist Arion. He created the dithyramb, a choral song in honor of the god Dionysus. The dithyrambic theory suggests these songs, performed by a group of up to 50 men, are the origin of theatre. The next innovation happened in 550 BCE and is attributed to a performer named Thespis. He wore a mask to portray Dionysus and stood apart from the other chorus members, making an individual character possible. This is why actors are called thespians. The next innovation came in 534 when play contests were introduced in Athens. This became a significant civic festival called the City Dionysia. Comedies were introduced in 487. 4 years later, in 471, the playwright Aeschylus introduced a second character, making dialogue possible. Then Sophocles introduced the third actor to create more complex storytelling in 468. He also reduced the number of men in the chorus. Theatre was moving away from the dithyramb to become drama. The subject of the plays were drawn from mythology as well as the ancient history of kings and heroes. Tragedy was the most prominent theatrical form, but the competing playwrights also had to show their talent by writing comedy and satyr plays. Comedy was usually very bawdy and contained numerous references to current political events. The chorus often consisted of animals such as birds or frogs. The most well-known writer of comedy was Aristophanes. Satyr plays were mythic interludes, portraying the half-goat half-man companions of Dionysus. This helped preserve the connection to the gods as the plays became more varied in their themes. Performances occurred in an outdoor amphitheatre. The space was traditionally sectioned off for the chorus, actors, spectators and various machines used for scenic effects. Please consult the text for the names of these components. Actors were costumed appropriate to the sex of the character and wore cork masks. In comedies, the male characters wore a phallus for comedic effect. Music played an important role as the speeches were sung or chanted in verse, with different rhythmic structures. The most common instruments were the flute, lyre and the aulos, a reed instrument. In 335 BCE, Alexander the Great of Macedonia came to power. The Greek civilization became more unified as Alexander's power grew. The name for this more unified society was Hellas. The period is called the Hellenistic or Hellenic period. Aristotle was a prominent philosopher of this era and wrote the Poetics, a treatise on the best practices for writing tragedy and epic poetry. It is known that he wrote one on comedy which was lost to history. Also in this time, theatres were built of stone and the architecture of the stage buildings became more complex, giving the actors more prominence. Theatre became an important aspect of Greek identity and in 227 BCE the Actors' Guild was created, making acting a profession. Dionysus was no longer the only thing celebrated in theatrical activity. Other festivals honored military victories and heroes. With more productions, more skilled actors were needed. The presence of a guild ensured that performers could be trained and available to producer managers. In spite of their professional status, actors were still considered to be disreputable. The role of women was not equal despite the philosophy of democracy. Women were prohibited from acting. They were permitted to be mimes, an older form of popular entertainment that was performed by nomads and wandering troops. These traveling mimes had a bad reputation that may have influenced the public perception of all forms of acting. They had been on the sidelines for many centuries before being permitted to perform in festivals after 300 BCE. Even after being admitted to the festivals, they were not associated with the worship of Dionysus or had any standing in the Actors' Guild. The latest innovation covered in Chapter 2 is the new comedy. This represents the move away from the broad, absurd comedy of Aristophanes, to a more subtle style made popular by the playwright Menander. His plays portrayed people in domestic situations. The lewd sexual content was replaced with love interests and the foibles of romance. Usually the plot consisted of boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. Domineering or greedy parental figures usually acted as obstacles in the story. The elements of Greek theatre have influenced nearly every age of Western theatre to come after. Aristotle's ideas on dramatic structure can be seen in modern-day script writing. The comedic style of Menander also influenced later periods, especially that of the Romans in the centuries to come. This concludes the review of Chapter 2. Thank you for listening and goodbye for now.